Welcome to Designing Your Ascent. Our speaker today is Charlotte Tueckmantel. She is an executive business consultant. And growth is not accidental. Professional success stories are built on intentional choices. The directions we set, the experiences we pursue, and the lessons we apply to what comes next. This discussion explores how to design your ascent with purpose, recognizing what drives you, identifying what's next, and taking deliberate steps for getting that. So our first chat prompt, Sandy's going to drop that in. One word, what drives your ambition? And while everybody is answering that, Charlotte, please share a bit about your background and include the positions you've held across your career ascent.
Will do. Thank you. And first, thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure. I've enjoyed listening as much as I could to all of the other wonderful speakers so far today and the great folks who got awards. So thank you very much for letting me be part of that. So my career has been completely in print for 30 something years. Most of that has been in two companies, so EFI, Electronics for Imaging, and then eProductivity Software. And I held positions kind of across the board, which says a little bit about my career and that path and that journey. I held sales positions, channel sales positions, sales management positions, product management, leading product management teams, marketing, and finally into a chief operating officer role, which was my last role when I retired from professional corporate life, as I like to say, at the end of March.
So, you were the perfect person to tap for this discussion based upon exactly what you just said. Your career journey has been incredible, but your career path has not been a ladder. It has been a lattice. So you have gone up and down and around and had to learn new things and manage people. And I mention this because Charlotte presented a 2-session leadership workshop. I'm going to call it a workshop for the Girls Who Print members that is up on the member site for to watch for replays, and I certainly suggest that everybody does it. So if you've been here and you know that we're doing all of these sessions in 3 different sections following the Build It, Own It, Rule It. So the first thing in the ascending your career, if we're talking about building it, we're going to talk about setting direction with purpose. Mm-hmm. Before you can rise, you have to know where you want to go, and setting a direction is about clarity, alignment, and intentionality. So you've worked with leaders at every stage of your career. What helps somebody identify the direction that's right for them? Not what is expected, but what's aligned with their purpose.
Absolutely. And I think really that's the key element is your career can take many different directions in terms of the roles themselves, the industries even, but each of those steps needs to feel good. It needs to, I talk about nourishing your heart and your soul and your brain. The steps that you're taking need to feel good in your heart because that's your foundation. You can take that, and that foundation may help you in many different roles and many different types of organizations. But you need to know what kind of makes you tick, what you want to do in general in life, what you don't enjoy doing in general. And those will be some of the guideposts as you create opportunities, as you're presented with opportunities through the network you've created. Those are things, those are the elements that I think you need to continually not fall back on, but look back on or look to as you're making those decisions going forward.
Once your direction is clear, or the direction and for the next step is clear, how can people make decisions that reinforce that every day? Is it looking at the big picture, or is it looking at the little things, or both?
I hate to be quite, I think it is both. You can't always look at the big picture, or you kind of lose sight of where you are. And you also can't just be looking at your feet all the time, or, you might walk off a cliff. So it has to be a little bit of both. And what I found was helpful in my kind of career zigzag was starting to learn more of the things that I didn't want to continue doing, because I did a lot of different things. And I learned, okay, I'd had a sales position where I dialed for dollars. Yes, I'm that old. We dialed for dollars, and it was a great learning experience. But I also learned I don't really enjoy it. I was okay at it and it served its purpose, but I didn't really enjoy it. So I took some of those elements and, okay, how do I get the next sales position? And I, moved into a different type of sales, which was more rewarding, more enjoyable. So I think it's certainly learning those pieces and looking at where you are today, because you need to keep doing that. You need to keep learning from it. But how does that fit into kind of the bigger picture, whether it's you're very clear on what you want to do or just as clear on the things that you don't want to do, and taking those steps in between?
Fantastic. We've heard that a lot today, understanding what you don't want to do is a really powerful exercise, as long as you don't waver from it. I mean, a lot of times it's like, I'm not going to do that. Well, okay, I'll do that, but I'm not going to do that too. And then
Yes.
you're doing that too, because a lot of times standing your ground is not, takes a lot of confidence, it can't be fear based. There's a lot that goes there's a lot of pressure in staying on your own path when things are coming at you. For example, you might be focused on, your role right now might entail having to learn more about computer code, and you're doing that, and then all of a sudden someone comes and says, you know what, we don't need you to do that anymore, but you've already invested your time and your energy into it. So I would say that that's pretty much a decision point for somebody at that point. If I stay on this path, if I build this foundation of these skills that are not required of me right now, but I want to get to at a certain point, there's got to be some way to balance the day-to-day responsibility and also keep vision on, the end goal. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, and that was kind of a point that I had in my head as well. It is about balance, unless you're running your own company, and even then, I think you have to make compromises. Work and jobs are about compromises. So yes, I said I don't want to do that, and I still believe that I didn't want to do it, but it's this part of a job, and I get to do these five other things that keep me going where I want to ultimately get to in the next step or two steps or three steps. That was a conscious decision to make that compromise, if you
Yeah.
will. I wouldn't go back and do a, direct sales, carrying a bag only job. I know that about myself. But if that's an element of something I was going to do, that would be something I would then, think more deeply about.
So we have a chat prompt now. One word. What defines purpose for you? And when your direction is anchored in purpose, growth becomes less about pace and more about precision. It might take you 5 years to get there instead of 3, but that's what might need to happen in order for you to walk in a room and have the confidence to do that job or go on that job interview, whatever that might be. So the next step from the foundation is, like tapping into the experience now and your skills and growing. So every step forward comes from experience and how you amplify it. Growth isn't chance. We always say it grows a print. You're not lucky. Preparation and time and the right moment in time came together and you were ready to meet it. So growth isn't chance. It's crafted through learning, through reflection, and through intentional development. So Charlotte, what steps can professionals take to actively build towards advancement and position themselves for opportunity?
Absolutely. And probably not directly answering the question with what the next thing I'm going to say, but I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. And it's certainly been pivotal to my choices and where I've gone in my career. It's be open to saying yes. Sometimes it's just say yes. And that comes in a lot for a lot of different ways and a lot of different reasons. One is very few of us go into any position, any new role, knowing everything. You think it's going to be like this and you have a good foundation, but we all learn along the way. So don't let the idea of, oh, I've never done that before, stop you from saying yes, or I don't know if I can do that. Those things should never stop you from saying yes. Many of the career kind of zigs and zags and changes that I've gone on were not ones that I necessarily planned myself. They weren't chance. It wasn't lucky, to your point. But I had set myself up, maybe even somewhat unbeknownst at the time. But I created a network, and this is very important. If you're interested in another role, something you're not, the group you're not in today, but you're interested in it, go partner with someone in that position. Go see how you can help them be more successful in their position in the role that you have today. That gives you a learning opportunity, one. It creates an ally, two. And in doing all of that, when an opportunity does open itself up, you are now in the consideration for that. Your name is now known in that circle. So no, it's not luck. It's not chance. It might be a little bit being at the right place at the right time, but you've put the work in. You've done the learning. You've put yourself out there in a way that makes you a great choice for that opportunity.
So, how can somebody recognize when they've outgrown their current role and start preparing for the next one with confidence? And I think this is really important because I always like to say the universe does not honor your comfort zone. But you can live in denial about it all you want until, finally it pushes you out of the nest, whatever it is. So, how do you address that?
Think people are here today, or they're watching it in, arrears. They're ambitious, they're motivated, and those are drivers. At your job every day, and you're just going through the motions. It's just easy for you. I'm not saying people are calling it in, but maybe a little bit of that. You've outgrown that position. It's actually not a bad place to be. And I was thinking a lot about this coming into today. Being able to approach your job today without a lot of brain space gives you then that brain space to start filling in the blanks for the next position. You can start asking for those extra projects. You can start volunteering for that group, that committee that's going to expose you to more people in an organization and continue to do well at the position you're in. So it's not a bad place to be at all if you use it then to get to that next position, that next level, that next group, onto that next committee, whatever the next thing is. I think that's really taking advantage of, okay, I'm good at this now. I'm really good at this. I'm not getting a curveball every day. I've got the mental space, the capacity to fill in the blanks now for the next thing that I'm looking for. And of course, you've got to go do that now.
Yeah. That's interesting. I, often think about these situations as the first person I spoke to when the pandemic kicked off was a printer whose sole focus was cruise ships. As we were watching the cruise ships that were not allowed to come land in the United States, and there was other crazy stuff happening with cruise ships at that time. And he was not prepared at all for anything because he was like, I got my system down. I know everything I'm doing. I've got all my clients. They're all the big cruises. I'm sitting pretty. I never have to worry about this until one day, boom, his world
Until you
was
did.
over, was gone. But you know what he did? He found a chemical company and he worked with them to create a coating that could go over print with antibacterial properties to
Hmm.
it that could be washed.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, he was back in the cruise ships when they came back. But of course, he was able to, however, sell that product to people. So that was something that was born out of somebody who had no preparation, no backup plan. We hear this a lot. I mean, I can't afford to lose too many partners, because I only want to work with certain people that share the
Hmm.
same sort of values and I say values like what do we want for the industry, not my personal values, but I like to work with people like teams, not just individually, but you always have to be prepared for something. And, in this particular case, I'm only mentioning it because he wasn't an ink chemist. He wasn't a chemist. He just realized that if I want to save my livelihood, I'm going to have to do something about it.
Well, the adage necessity is the mother of all invention is very true.
Yeah.
And I think
Totally.
some of that comes with certainly some of the positions I've taken have not been a choice of mine at that time. It was the role I was in wasn't going to exist anymore. I mean, that happened a couple
Yeah.
of times. So great. What am I going to do now? I
Right.
then did make choices to go forward from that. So that was the necessity piece. But it was also not being afraid, as your example, not being afraid to take that chance. Okay, he had his core. He knew what he was good at. How do I keep doing that in this new world?
Right. I thought it was very crafty. I was very
Mhm.
impressed with that. So we have a chat prompt coming in. What skill are you building right now to prepare for your next move, if you're having a next move? So intentional growth is a result of awareness, preparation, and the courage to take action, possibly before you're even ready to do so. And the third part of this session is taking deliberate steps towards success. So, ambition becomes achievement through planning and through follow through. Designing your ascent means turning vision into structure and momentum into measurable progress. Navigating growth takes allies, Charlotte. So, what's the smartest way to build those relationships, to seek help, mentorship, and collaboration as you move toward what is next?
I think there's two pieces to that. There's your personal reputation, and that's what you establish. What are the things? What are your north stars? What do you want people to know you for? And continuously nurture that. It's been a big part of the successes, the opportunities I've had. People could always say, and I think they still would. If you call Charlotte, she's going to call you back. If you send her an email, she's going to answer you. If she says she's going to do something, she is. Those types of things, whatever that is for you and your personal brand, nurture that. Hold tight to that. It is very important. And in doing that, one of the biggest ones that I think we all can do and do more of is create those partnerships, particularly inside of an organization or in kind of your own supply chain management. What can you do to help them? When I often try and go to someone without not with my problem, it is my problem, but how can I help them to then fix my problem? You can't help me today because of this. Well, can I help you with that? And then you can help me. So life is largely a negotiation, and I think a lot of the career path and the ability to move forward is making those relationships, and you do that through a give and take, and being very purposeful about that, not underhanded or not it's not nefarious in any way, but it's all about, okay, let's all move forward. those are the people who are going to think about you. Those are the people who are going to know of an opportunity that maybe you don't even know about. And they're going to remember those things and they're going to call you. They're going to put your name forward. They're going to recommend you for those things. So it's very much building your personal brand and staying very, very true to that, potentially at cost of other things, and creating that network, whether that's in your organization, whether that's groups around you, but creating that network. It is very true. Some of the best jobs that are out there, they're not advertised. Some of the best opportunities you create yourself, not necessarily as posted on Indeed or LinkedIn or anything.
Yes, and honestly, that is one of the things that we say at Girls Who Print all the time. The way to make changes or improvements within an organization is to make sure that there are people in all different positions to put their hand out to their own network. And when you have in a male-dominated industry, you have mostly men, and who's in their network? It's usually mostly men. This doesn't make anybody evil or that they're strategically trying to stop people
It's
from
just
having
numbers.
jobs. It's just human nature. And by the way, if they have a fantastic woman in their network who would be perfect for it, I'm not saying they wouldn't recommend them, but I'm saying that there's probably a 8 out of 10 chance that they're going to tap a gentleman for that role because that's who their peer group is. So we need to grow more women in those managerial positions. We need to grow more women in the hiring positions. We need to grow more women who run companies, who become CEOs, who become, directors of agencies or whatever it might be, so they can put their hands out to their networks and, pull the next person up with them. So we have a chat prompt. What step will you take next to move your career forward? Because success does not happen by chance. It is built by design. So, Charlotte, if you wanted to make a plan versus having a network that you have a great reputation with, who's like, aha, I've got the perfect person for you. I want to turn this around. Now you have to make the plan. What is your best advice for designing that career ascent from wherever anybody is in their path right now?
I think it's largely like you would attack any project, anything you're trying to do, any go to market, anything like that. And a friend of mine actually did this very recently, and I'm so incredibly proud of her. She'd been in finance, she'd been in sales ops, and she wanted to get into startups. She didn't want to be a startup, but she wanted to be in that incubator space. So with her day job going on, she joined networking groups. She went to meetups. She joined online groups. She asked people out for a coffee, and she created a network. And exactly, kind of like I was saying, but she had decided this is what I want to do. And she looked at all the different places she could intersect with the people that she needed to meet, which she knew none of them. And lo and behold, yes, one of the people at one of the meetups, at one of the person she asked out for coffee, he was hiring, and she was brought into that hiring process, and she never would have been brought into that hiring process. So I think treating your career like a project, like anything else that you're looking to plan and do, is kind of table stakes.
Yeah. Somebody at the last Girls Who Print event said you have to be the CEO of your own career. You have to
Yes.
run it like a business, and you have to be the CEO of your own careers.
No one's
Now,
sitting around thinking about, oh, what would Charlotte like to do? What would Deborah like to do?
yes, I've learned that nobody's thinking about me. Thank you.
They're not.
No,
Yes, we think way more about ourselves than others do, which can be a little comforting in certain
yeah,
scenarios. But yes, you have to plan it. You
right.
have to be proactive about it.
Growth is an intentional act. And when you set direction with purpose and build your skills strategically, you move forward deliberately and you take ownership of your path and your progress. And that is why we are here today. We have one last prompt, which is, what does success look like to you now? Because you don't climb by accident, you rise by design. And Charlotte, I just want to thank you so much for attending with us today. As you see, we got to all the questions. So I really do appreciate everything that you do for Girls Who Print, including joining us on the advisory board. And now that you're working with PGSF, I'm looking forward to strengthening the relationship between those two organizations as well. Thank you so much.